You've heard it 1,000 times from every old-timer at the boat ramp. Late winter, pre-spawn pike. You got to go big to get the big girls. What if I told you that is probably the single worst piece of advice that's costing you fish? Today, we're not just questioning that old rule. We're putting it on trial. We're going to expose why your monster swim baits and giant plugs are getting completely ignored by the fish you want to catch. And I promise, by the end of this video, you'll understand the simple metabolic reason why downsizing might be the key to your biggest late winter pike yet. I'll even show you the exact moment on the water when this all clicked for me, and it changed everything. So, let me know in the comments right now, are you a go big or go home angler, or have you already figured out this secret? Let's be honest, the go bigger logic sounds like it makes perfect sense, right? The water is cold, the pike are lethargic, and their metabolism is in the tank. The theory is that a big, lazy predator doesn't want to waste energy chasing a bunch of tiny snacks. It wants to line up one massive, calorie-rich meal and then go sit in a corner and digest for a week. This advice gets passed down from one generation to the next. You read it in magazines from the 1980s, you see it on fishing forums, and you hear it from the guy at the bait shop. It's become fishing gospel, but the gospel is wrong because it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how a cold-blooded predator actually behaves. Truly wants, more than anything else, is truly wants, more than anything else, is an easy meal. The difference between those two things is absolutely massive. A big meal can be a lot of work to catch and consume, representing a huge gamble in energy. An easy meal is a sure thing, a guaranteed return on a minimal investment of effort. That's the game they're playing. Now for a quick biology lesson. This is the key. A pike is cold-blooded. Its body temperature, and therefore its metabolic rate, is dictated by the water around it. When the water is just above freezing, a pike's internal engine is running at its lowest possible speed. It's barely ticking over. Think of it like a car in neutral, just burning enough gas to keep the engine from stalling. It's not looking to enter a drag race. So let's talk about the energy equation. Every single movement a pike makes burns precious calories it can't afford to waste. Chasing down a massive 10-inch lure that's moving with any real speed is a high-energy gamble. If it misses, it's lost a huge amount of energy for zero reward. That's a bad bet for a fish that is trying to conserve every last bit of fuel to survive the winter and prepare for the spawn. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine you're snowed in at home, feeling lazy and cold. Are you going to get up and prepare a complicated 5-course turkey dinner from scratch? Or are you going to reach for that bag of potato chips sitting on the end table right next to you? You're grabbing the chips. That's the pike's mindset. It wants maximum calories for minimum effort. Your giant lure is that turkey dinner. This leads to another critical point. The primary trigger for a strike in late winter often isn't ravenous hunger. These fish aren't actively pack hunting and smashing bait schools. The trigger is a mix of opportunism, reaction, and territorial aggression. They strike because something that looks weak and vulnerable violates their personal space, and the energy cost to eliminate it seems incredibly low. It's an impulse buy, not a planned trip to the grocery store. And think about what happens after the meal. In that frigid water, a huge meal can take days, even over a week, to fully digest. During that time, the pike is sluggish, vulnerable, and out of the feeding game entirely. A smaller, more manageable snack can be processed much more efficiently, allowing the fish to be ready for its next easy opportunity sooner. It's simply a more effective survival strategy. So let's get practical and talk about forage. What are the pike actually seeing down there? While there might be some large baitfish around, the most common and available food source is often smaller, stressed-out yellow perch, shiners, or crappies. These are the fish that are struggling with the cold themselves. They are the weak members of the herd, and the pike are genetically programmed to pick them off. This is all about the vulnerability factor. A big, perfectly swimming 8-inch swim bait looks healthy and strong. It looks like a challenge. But a small 4-inch jerk bait that's twitching and dying with long pauses. That lure screams, "Free lunch?" Looks like a bait fish that's about to die anyway. It's the easiest possible target, and that's what triggers that predatory impulse. So here's where we make the pivot. What is the alternative? I'm not telling you to start throwing tiny, crappy jigs. It's about being strategic, and downsizing in a smart way means shifting from 12-inch musky lures to the 4 to 6-inch range. It's about presenting a meal that perfectly matches that low-energy, high-reward profile the pike are looking for. I'll tell you my aha moment. I was out on a frozen reservoir a few years back. For 3 hours, I threw the biggest, most expensive glide bait in my box because that's what I was supposed to do. Nothing, not a single follow. My buddy, mostly to annoy me, ties on a little 4.5-inch Rapala X wrap. On his third cast, with a ridiculously long pause, his rod doubles over a fat 38-inch pike. That's when the light bulb went on. This is where we bring in the idea of finesse fishing for a power fishing animal. Finesse isn't just for bass anglers using drop shots. For pike, finesse means using a smaller bait that you can work more subtly. A smaller lure can be hung in the strike zone almost indefinitely. It allows you to use pauses that last 5, 10, even 15 seconds, and that's something you just can't do with a 2-ounce lure. The bait's profile matters just as much as its length. A slender 5-inch jerkbait has a much less intimidating presence than a thick 5-inch boot-tailed swim bait with a big thumping tail. The slender profile mimics the baitfish that are most common and easiest for a pike to inhale without a huge, energy-wasting flare of its gills. So let's talk about specific lures. Your number one weapon should be a suspending jerkbait, something in the 4 to 5-inch range. The key is its neutrality. You can twitch it down and it will just sit there perfectly still, sometimes for as long as you're willing to wait. The strike almost always comes when the lure is sitting perfectly still. It's a game of chicken, and the pike always loses. Lure type number 2 is the blade bait. Especially in stained water or on overcast days, the tight, vibrating action is something a lethargic pike can detect with its lateral line from a long way off. It's not a meal, it's an annoyance. It's an irritating vibration in their space that they feel compelled to crush just to make it stop. And don't forget smaller soft plastics. I'm talking about 4 to 5-inch paddle tails, but rigged on a much lighter jig head than you'd normally use. A 1/4 ounce or even an 1/8 ounce head. This allows you to slowly crawl and hop it along the bottom, barely moving. It looks exactly like a dying perch trying to get its last few kicks in. Now let's touch on the color debate. In cold and often very clear late winter water, flashy, obnoxious colors can be a turn-off. This is the time for natural patterns to shine. Think about what lives in that body of water. Perch patterns, silver and black for shiners, or natural shad colors, are almost always your best bet. You want to match the hatch, not throw a rave party. And where do you find these fish? They're not always sitting in the deepest part of the lake. They are in transition mode. Look for the first major drop-offs, points, or weed edges adjacent to the shallow protected bays where they will eventually spawn. They are staging, waiting for the water temperature to give them the green light. Find those waiting rooms, and you'll find the fish. About a painfully agonizingly slow retrieve, a twitch, followed by a pause where you could literally check your phone, and then another twitch. The colder the water, the longer the pause. This is non-negotiable. Let's put it all together. You're casting that small, suspending jerkbait out over a staging point. You give it 2 small twitches, then you wait. You count to 10, nothing. You give it 1 more tiny pop, and you wait again. On the 8th second of that pause, your line just goes tight. That's not a bite. The pike just swam up and inhaled it. That's the moment this entire system works. Now let me be clear. I am not telling you to go home and throw out all of your big baits. They absolutely have their time and place, especially in the fall or on warmer, active days. But for the specific, challenging conditions of late winter, they should not be in your starting lineup. They should be on the bench, waiting for the game to change. So, the big takeaway here is simple, that old school advice to go big for late winter pike is based on a flawed premise. It completely ignores the fish's basic biology. Their incredibly slow metabolism dictates a need for an easy, low-risk meal, not a challenging, high-energy one. The real aha moment, the pivot point, is when you stop thinking big meal and start thinking easy opportunity. That single shift in mindset is when you start catching those giant lethargic fish that everyone else is driving right over. This small change in lure size combined with a major change in your retrieve speed can literally transform a dead, freezing day into a personal best. Thank you so much for watching. If this video challenged what you thought you knew about pike fishing, do me a favor and hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe for more no-nonsense fishing advice that actually works. And now, I really want to hear from you. What is the single worst piece of fishing advice you have ever received? Drop it in the comments below. Let's have a laugh and learn from each other's mistakes. See you on the water.